Close like two phones kept apart that can still catch Bluetooth, but we still don't know our neighbors by name. Our windows are so closely built, but our hands still can't reach for a handshake. Don't blame the metal bars in between. Close like the distance between the TV and the dining table, you only believe in the freedom of a TV remote that you really can't carry to the next room. You can't taste the blood of war in your soups, the chemical on little Syrian kids in your milk, the ashes of cement and lead burning on their skin, on your toast. We have learned to see blood as we eat. Don't blame the butcher. Close like the houses we live and the homes we belong in, cities with on hills and no horizons. If tall buildings ever taught us something, it is on how to pray during an earthquake. Don't blame the gods. Close like who you are and who you wanted to be. The only reason we all love stargazing and biting babies is because of all the glitter we lost in growing up. Don't blame our mothers. Close like the space between our head and our heart. Now you can blame you and me. I promised people that I'll perform a couple of new pieces. So this is called bar fights. I've never been in a bar fight. I've watched many. Bar fights. Despair walks into a bar and then right into me, and then suddenly these colored lights remind me of an ambulance stuck in a 9 a.m. traffic. It's too hot to die inside a metal can, and I wish my last plate of food is all the sunflowers on this earth with enough mozzarellas. But do you really want to die outside in a traffic? In front of these office goers on a Monday morning, do you want to soil their shirts or spoil the first day of the week? So hold your breath and count backwards to 1. We are going to die somewhere else. Somewhere where the last butterfly is seen and isn't painted on a wall. Somewhere where the music doesn't remind me of my heart beating out of my chest. With a little more air, hold your breath. We are going to die somewhere else. Most of my pieces are very small, so I hope it just let me know when the 15 minutes is up. Okay. I don't know if this happens with everyone. This happened with me. Have you ever been in a relationship so long that the next one, even when you get into the next one, it starts, all the signs and symptoms begins to feel like the previous one? Okay. So I'm not going mad. My girlfriend is Orthodox Brahmin, and my dad is a pastor. So wish me luck. So naturally, they didn't let us move in together. So we moved into the same street. So she lives 2 houses separate from mine. This is called This Street Away Lover. I've had this before. This street away lover. This me talking too many walks for a summertime lover. This I know when she wakes up lover. This when she will walk by my house today lover. This why can I see her eyes from this far lover. This are the neighbors looking at us lover. This I don't care, I'm walking you home tonight lover. This why does this distance keep killing me lover. This we are stupidly young but let's get married lover. This plan our wedding in the city lover. This I hope our parents agree lover. This is why we do have to be from opposite religions lover. This is I can't wait to share the roof with you lover. I don't want the rest of the story to repeat. My brain has replaced memories of the persons walking away, plays back to me each night when the lights go out, yet when I wake up to love you all over again in the morning. So when you ask me when did I fall for you, I will always tell you it was today morning. I'm so happy to have this lover a street away. Thank you. Yeah, I like dark poems. So this poem as Mariam said, I mentor a few people around and see what I can do best with my time. So a lot of people have asked me, how do you become a spoken word poet? I'm a written poet. How do you become a spoken word poet? How do you do that? How do you do this? How do you write poetry? So this poem is titled Learning Poetry. I've learnt love by falling headfirst for a girl with knives for hands. and wondered if gravity was a better executioner. The second time around, it was bungee jumping. From all the things I was warned about, all these things I was still healing from. This felt like the earthworm from far end of a lustful stick. After all, that's what they said. That's what they always say. There are too many fishes in the sea. It took me more tears to years than I ever imagined to fall in love again, and no more the bungee jumping. I learnt about kerosene from the fireman who put out my neighbor who lit herself on fire. Auntie always gave me puffs to eat. Auntie always smiled. Auntie lived in a time where depression was not defined. But gods had more than one portrait. What does a woman do when her husband can't understand her head as much as he understands her body? When they finally kept her in an icebox, she looked a lot like the puff. Inside the bakery glass, a lot crooked and a lot scaly. I learned metaphors from self-therapy that I can't afford. The therapy at the end of expectation is not after living but surviving. I learned metaphors by describing feelings for the self-therapy that I put myself to. As happy as the time I saw her face light up to the gold ring inside my refrigerator. As happy as the time I kissed you and we both weren't prepared. As angry as the time they call me lower class. As angry as the time my oppressor gets to call me oppression because of my genitalia. As loved as the first time she wiped my lips with her favorite t-shirt after feeding me when I was sick. As loved as the time my mom gives this 29-year-old a bath sometimes. As sad as every time else. Poetry is not written but lived. It is not written with ink but time. These lines are testimonies of a photograph of time passing through this decay we call a body. These metaphors carry stories that cannot be said, stories I haven't found the courage to write, stories that still define who I am. There are words that are etched somewhere in between my neurons. We all are just stories waiting to be heard. So when you ask me how to write poetry, I'll tell you that you don't. You go ahead and live. Your best poem will write itself. If we are worthy enough, maybe we'll tell our stories to the vagabond that kiss us and go. How many moments do you have? The next poem is called The Graveyard Book. The Graveyard Book is by Neil Gaiman. So this is a completely off-topic book. This talks about the minorities in India. This talks about the oppressed class in India that people rarely write or talk about. So I always take this opportunity to write about it. It's called The Graveyard Book. There is a book where stories go to die. Its pages as white as the souls that it swallows. Here words are not written in ink but whispered in between the knots of paper like a lover's abuse. It's not something people prefer to read for their leisure. It's not what God wanted to write in the first place. This is what the ugliness of mankind looked like and still does. This is our history of an untouchable skin color and a caste that can get burnt you alive before supper. I swear if you read these pages, you will see what you want to see. A statistics, a balance sheet for all the years you gave them a hand, an inconvenience you had no hand in. Your ignorance will black out the chapters of the part where your privilege was handed over to you by the hands that kept these stories hushed. The part where my great-great-grandfather was chased away with stones because he went near a school. When they tell you that your ancestral women fought evil and chased them away from their land, they won't tell you about the part where they chased a Dalit out with a stick and stones. This is the book where stories go to die, where parts of it are deliberately left out for the elements to fade them away, to erase it slowly from time and history. But what stories can you expect from the hands that were chopped for touching a book? What poetry can you expect a man who was never taught to write? There is a book where stories go to die like the song of the mourners. There's a book where stories go to die when you find the graveyard book. Search for this poem. I have 5 minutes? Yeah, nice. I'll have 2 more poems. I'll finish with 2 more poems. Yeah, this is an old one. This is again a story about how most of the minorities are affected in India, and this is a personal take of the story. This is how I believe that most of spoken word poetry has to be written. It has to come from yourself. It has to come from your experiences, and we basically do not have to write about how that happened, this happened, and I'm writing about that. So this is called a coconut skin. My grandfather could crack open a coconut like the creators would split the cosmos into perfect two halves. Even if we were to measure them at an atomic level, and after whatever has to be eaten away in the coconut is taken, my grandfather would save the shells. He would roll up a sandpaper in his hands and polish them for hours, scrubbing them like his life depended on it. Scrubbing them till they felt like polished marble, scrubbing them till his palms hardened like clay. When I was 8, he taught me how to paint a wall. When I was 12, he taught me how to fix a bicycle wheel. When I was 18, he told me that the only way to judge a man is by his hands. He who had lost 2 of his fingers to a greedy manager and a faulty machine, but he never taught me about coconut skins. When asked, he would look me in the eye and tell me, I hope you will never have to know. His eyes would look like glass from the tiny film of a teardrop he is holding on for 68 years of his life. It took me 28 years of my existence to find his tear duct and question the reasons they bleed for. Behind his glassy eyes were streets he was not allowed to walk. Sometimes when he was allowed, his footwear was in his hands, his turban around his hips. Behind his weary eyebrows were lovers parting ways under trees just so that they wouldn't end up on them. And some of them did hang from trees because they were so pregnant with love. No wonder you still throw stones at reservations for jobs and not yet your own caste-based marriages. Behind his dark, sun-skinned, sweat-dried fields of a skin was a name they called untouchable. The hands that brought forth food always remained shackled with shame. No wonder our farmers are returned farther, much quicker to earth than they were supposed to. Behind his tongue were prophecy of an old man. Told me that rice will come in small packets. Told me that love will be marketed with gold. More vegetables would go extinct before animals. No wonder corporates have more land than your governments. Behind my dad's envelope on my caste certificate for school had no pins and a tape. Probably the first time my dad trusted me with letters. And for that trust and that trust only, I never looked at it because that behind the sheet of paper is what the world wants to define me as. Because inside that envelope lies the shame of all my ancestors. Just like my grandpa, you see, my grandpa could crack open a coconut like the creators would split the cosmos into perfect two halves to make cups out of them. Because he remembers a time when the metal was not made for the untouchable, only coconut shells were. And if you think those times are dead and gone, yesterday I learned to split the coconut into exact two halves. This is my last poem. It's an old one. It's called My Mother Could Be a Russian Spy. A little background to it. I think there are two people here with their mothers, I guess. Okay. So I don't know. Mothers have the supernatural ability. Like you get a call from someone and they just stand creepingly next to you. Like after you cut the call, they're like, "Who's it?" But I heard a girl's voice. Oh, she just told cough syrup. Okay. So I always wondered that my mother was like a spy in the making. Like she had a basement full of like mechanical stuff and like traces stuff. Almost thought that my watch had like traces and stuff. So it's called My Mother Could Be a Russian Spy. My mother could be a Russian spy. She's a foot taller than my dad and 7 shades lighter than him. The only proof of her existence is a lousy marriage certificate from 30 years ago. She has no birth certificate. In all these years, we have never celebrated her birthday. Probably that's what happens when a girl child is born with 4 brothers. 4 brothers whom she raised herself, for whom she had to quit school for. I do not know if she was asked to. My mother could be a Russian spy because she has 4 tattoos, one with a Russian origin. She doesn't even remember why she got them in the first place. But I remember why I got hers. When she was 16, she used to lift so much hay for her cows that even grown men were scared of. I've seen her carry more pots of water up 3 floors of stairs than a firefighter trying to save his own family. Now her spine is bent like a bow, her nerves on her toes act like short-circuited wires, sending only signals of pain. I wonder if she regrets. Yet she never agrees to hire a maid. When asked why her uneducated brain gets angry, her ever-glistening face smiles through her anger. She tells with a voice so stubborn that you won't have to ask her twice. She tells me with all her pride, as long as I live, there won't be another woman who will ever touch your dad's clothes or ever put food on his plate. Most of you would call this oppression, but this is how she learned to love, and don't you dare tell her otherwise. My mother can be a Russian spy. She can hide all the Christmas sweets inside our house and none of us can find it, not even my dad. Sometimes she finds them a Christmas later and she forgets them a Christmas later. I wonder about the times we have hurt her. I'm sure she hid all the pain in the exact same places. None of us can find it, not even my dad. Sometimes her old age takes her back to the exact same places. I wait for another Christmas to ask for forgiveness that I never had the guts to ask. My mother could be a Russian spy. She speaks only one language but can understand every other. There's something about hands and eyes and the way they move that speak to her, but words and accents fail. Sometimes when my depression decapitates my hands, plucks my tear ducts from my eyes, I pray that my mother will not find me inside the corners of my own house. Yet she is always known. The sweet potato dish doesn't come out of nowhere. I'm still too scared to ask her about the potatoes. My mother can never be a Russian spy. Because all she can read is love. All she knows is leftover food. All she has now is a window that she is waiting for both of her sons 500 kilometers away. 500 kilometers away, me and my brother eat packaged food out of cartoon boxes and she adds lesser salt to her dishes because of the tears she mixes with them before she says grace. My mother can never be a Russian spy because all she can read is love, and I pray to the God both dead and living, when I bring the love of my life home, she won't have to question either one of us.